Hello again, and welcome to the North Form podcast. I'd like to start with a book recommendation by the famous, for good reason, Bruce Lee. Absolutely fantastic book by him. It's called Striking Thoughts, Bruce Lee's Wisdom for Daily Living. Right now we're on marriage. Other topics include knowledge, ideas, concentration, perception, emotion, happiness, fear, dreams, will, faith, work, acting, on thinking, human being, existence, the now. So, I also wanted to recommend, so I guess we're on a recommendations podcast for now, the Bushido bullet journal. I have the yellow one. I've had this for quite some time. It's an absolutely fantastic way to record your thoughts. It has 3 different colored bookmarks depending on which version you get, and it comes with a key ready for you to make your own symbols for what to do. And it's a great way to journal because it's fully customized. You also have an intentions section at the beginning. It's fully a dot grid, so you can see that you have a lot of options to create a different design for each page. It's absolutely fantastic, I just have to say. And so example of something I've written down here is Ornitographia, writing emotions. Emotography. I've talked about this on the channel before. The power of writing down your emotions. Goge is led. Agoge is leading. Agen is to lead. Gosh, sometimes I have trouble reading my stuff. Then you have an index section as well. So that starts with the future log. Then you have general. I've got lexicography, which is dictionary words, daily log, and a ledger. So I'm also using this for accounting. And you have, I just can highly recommend it. This one also comes with a bunch of stickers and a how-to guide. It has a folder in the back along with a QR code to use the app with inspirational quotes. You've got a whole bunch of stickers. It's a reasonable price as well. And actually, I'm going to use these stickers because we're now in March, April, May, June, the 6th month, which is June. Boy, how time flies. So I'm going to use that. It has a filter system that you can use for monthly reflection here. So the filter is it a task? Is it vital? If you're unsure, does it matter? Yes, no, unsure. What are the consequences? If it does matter, yes, then you migrate it to either your monthly log, your future log, or custom. So he's got his own way of doing things. By the way, it smells fantastic. Hopefully we got some fellow book and future loggers journals out there, because to me it makes a big difference. The material, the chemicals that the book was printed on makes a huge difference to my enjoyment of the process. Part of the productivity system is purpose-powered productivity. So you could see that between the why and the what, I'm still getting used to this, what and the why is where the bullet, where the power, where the electrification is. The goal of Bushido is to help you live a more intentional life by keeping your actions aligned with your beliefs. So important, and that's what we've been talking about in the katana mindset. Again, you've got a quick response code, that's a QR code, to link you to the free journal app, which is helpful. Stickers are great. It's so much, it's probably going to take you, depending on how much you write, at least a year, if not more, maybe several years to go through all of this. I write a lot, so also, I've recommended before on this channel, they actually got burned because I wasn't paying attention, and I didn't burn. I left the heat on the burner. And so they actually got slightly warped. slightly bent, you can see. But these are the Bic Crystal. Absolutely fantastic. Excellent pens. They're not as jelly as something like an Energel, which I'm also a huge fan of. Actually, my mom got me these from Japan. They're from Pentel. They're also fantastic. The only problem is they do go dry sometimes, unlike the Bic Crystal. But they are more, I wouldn't say smooth. The Bic Crystal is very smooth, but they're more jelly, more liquidy, if you're into that kind of thing. Then, of course, highlighters. Bic makes great highlighters, although the lettering does rub off over time. These originally had lettering on them, but the paint is just sort of a biodegradable paint, just wears off over time. That's great. So what I use for highlighting is green means something good, actionable, something to pay attention to in the positive direction. Yellow means something more or less neutral, just an observation, general highlights. And then green is something that means go. I think I reversed that. I'm so sorry. The red is something to watch out for, something negative, something that can hold you back, something bad, watch out for, something in the negative direction. Yellow is something neutral, just to pay attention to, an observation. And then green is something good, go for, positive, pay attention to this in a positive way. All right, so that's all I had for recommendations. Bic Crystal, Pentel, Energel pens, the bullet journals, absolutely fantastic. There's probably something I missed in there as well. It has kind of a ledger or a key at the beginning. I mentioned that. It has a place to name it. The daily log is great. I love that you have a key, which you can refer to, and an index. Circumlocution, to speak around. Circumlocution. I didn't actually use all of my index pages, yes. And I started the future log. I had one thing in my future log. Visit Barton Springs. And it's just a great opportunity to be creative and customize your journal experience. All right, moving forward, picked up this great book from Books A Million called The Way of the Samurai. It's very much related to what we've been talking about in the Katana mindset. Fantastic illustrations in this book. Absolutely gorgeous from various periods, the Edo period. Gorgeous in every way. So I thought I would read to you a few things about feudal Japan on veracity and sincerity. Without veracity and sincerity, politeness is a farce. It's a show. Propriety carried beyond the right bounds, says Masamune, becomes a lie. An ancient poet has outdone Polonius in the advice he gives. To thyself be faithful. If in thy heart thou strayest not from truth, without prayer of thine, the gods will keep thee whole. And this is the doctrine of the mean. Attributes to its transcendental powers, almost identifying them with the divine. Sincerity is the end and the beginning of all things. Without sincerity, there would be nothing. Then, in he dwells with eloquence on its far-reaching and long-enduring nature, its power to produce changes without movement, and by its mere presence to accomplish its purpose without effort. From the Chinese ideogram for sincerity, which is a combination of word and perfect, back to circumlocution, to speak around. One is tempted to draw a parallel between it and the Neoplatonic doctrine of the Logos. To such height does the sage soar in his unwanted, mystical flight. Lying or equivocation were deemed cowardly equally. That is, equivocating and lying are equally deemed cowardly. The Bushi held that his high social position demanded a loftier standard of veracity than that of the tradesman and the peasant. Bushi no Ichigon, the word of a samurai, or in exact German equivalent, ein Ritterwort. Ein Ritterwort. Ein Ritter. I'm not sure how to pronounce the R in German. Ritter, I know the W is a V. Wort, and it's not Wort, it's Wort. Ein Ritterwort is the guarantee of the truthfulness of an assertion. For those of you wondering what veracity is, it means, found it and then deleted it, conformity to facts. Conformity to facts. Accuracy. Habitual truthfulness, from the French véracité, which means truth. Vericitas, which is speaking truly. Vera, speaking truly. Verax, speaking truly. Same root as voracious. Veracity. Anyway, his word carried such weight with it that promises were generally made and fulfilled without a written pledge, which would have been deemed quite beneath his dignity. A written pledge, that is. Many thrilling anecdotes were told of those who atoned by death for nigon, a double tongue. The regard for veracity was so high that, unlike the generality of Christians who persistently violate the plain commands of the teacher not to swear, the best of samurai looked upon an oath as derogatory to their honor. I am well aware that they did swear by different deities or upon their swords, but never has swearing degenerated into a wanton form and irreverent interjection. To emphasize our words, a practice was sometimes resorted to of literally sealing with blood. For the explanation of such a practice, I need only refer my readers to Goethe's Faust. A recent American writer is responsible for the statement that if you ask an ordinary Japanese which is better, to tell a falsehood or be impolite, he will not hesitate to answer, to tell a falsehood. Dr. Puri is partly right and partly wrong, in that in ordinary Japanese, even a samurai may answer in the way ascribed to him, but wrong in attributing too much weight to the term he translates falsehood. This word in Japanese, uso, is employed to denote anything which is not truth, makato, or fact, honto. Lowell tells us that Wordsworth could not distinguish between truth and fact, and an ordinary Japanese in this respect as good as Wordsworth is. Ask a Japanese or even an American of any refinement, to tell you whether he dislikes you or whether he is sick at his stomach, and he will not hesitate long to tell falsehoods and answer, I like you much, or I am quite well, thank you. To sacrifice truth merely for the sake of politeness was regarded as an empty form, kyo-rei, and deception by sweet words. I am speaking. That's an interesting locution. I am speaking now of the Bushido idea of veracity, but it may not be amiss to devote a few words to our commercial integrity, of which I have heard much complaint in foreign books and journals. A loose business morality has indeed been the worst blot on our national reputation. But before abusing it or hastily condemning the whole race for it, let us calmly study it, and we shall be rewarded with consolation for the future. Of all the great occupations of life, none was further removed from the profession of arms than commerce. The merchant was placed lowest in the category of vocations. The knight, the tiller of the soil, the mechanic, the merchant. The samurai derived his income from land and could even indulge, if he had a mind to, in amateur farming, but the counter and abacus were abhorred. We knew the wisdom of this social arrangement. Montesquieu has made it clear that the debarring of the nobility from mercantile pursuits was an admirable social policy, and that it prevented wealth from accumulating in the hands of the powerful. The separation of power and riches kept the distribution of the latter more nearly equable. Professor Dill, the author of Roman Society, in the last century of the Western Empire, has brought afresh to our mind that one cause of the decadence of the Roman Empire was the permission given to the nobility to engage in trade, and the consequent monopoly of wealth and power by a minority of the senatorial families. Commerce, therefore, in feudal Japan, did not reach that degree of development which it would have attained under freer conditions. The obliquity attached to the calling naturally brought within its pale, such as cared little for social repute. I apologize. I must look up this word because I've never seen somebody use this word like this. Obloquy. Obloquy. Obloquy is the correct pronunciation. I love outtakes. Strong, which of course they're intakes here. Strong public criticism or verbal abuse. Okay, I did not know that. So, to apply what I just showed you, I will go ahead and take one of my highlighters. We'll just call this neutral, something I didn't know. So we'll take a yellow highlighter, and we'll go ahead and highlight the word obloquy. Did I say that right? Obloquy. I believe it's roughly obloquy if I'm looking at the phonetic pronunciation on the Oxford Dictionary. Obloquy. The obliquely attached to the calling naturally brought within its pale, such as cared for little social repute. Call one a thief, and he will steal. Put a stigma on a calling, and its followers adjust their morals to it. For it is natural that, quote, normal conscience, as Hugh Black says, rises to the demands made on it, and easily falls to the limit of the standard expected from it. It is unnecessary to add that no business, commercial or otherwise, can be transacted without a code of morals. Our merchants of the feudal period had one among themselves, without which they could never have deployed, as they did in embryo, such fundamental mercantile institutions as the guild, the bank, the bourse, the insurance, checks, bills of exchange, etc. But in their relations with people outside their vocation, the tradesmen lived too true to the reputation of their order. That being the case, when the country was opened to foreign trade, only the most adventurous and unscrupulous rushed to the ports, while the respectable business houses declined for some time the repeated requests of the authorities to establish branch houses. Was Bushido powerless to stay the current of commercial dishonor? Let us see. By the way, Bushido was one of the ancient religions of Japan. Those who are well acquainted with our history will remember that only a few years after our treaty ports were opened to foreign trade, feudalism was abolished, and with it the samurai's fiefs were taken and bonds issued to them in compensation. They were given liberty to invest them in mercantile transactions. Now, you may ask, why could they not bring their much boasted veracity into the new business relations and so reform the old abuses? Those who had eyes to see could not weep, though, enough. Those who had hearts to feel could not sympathize enough with the fate of many a noble and honest samurai who signally and irrevocably failed in his new and unfamiliar field of trade and industry through sheer lack of shrewdness in coping with his artful plebeian rival. When we know that 80% of the business houses fail in so industrial a country as America, is it any wonder that scarcely one among 100 samurai who went into trade could succeed in his new vocation? It will be long before it will be recognized how many fortunes were wrecked in the attempt to apply Bushido ethics to business methods, but it was soon patent to every observing mind that the ways of wealth were not the ways of honor. In what respects, then, were they different? Of three incentives to veracity that Lecky enumerates, vis-a-vis the industrial, the political, and the philosophical, the first was altogether lacking in Bushido. As to the second, it could develop little in a political community under a feudal system. It is in its philosophical, and as Lecky says, in its highest aspect, that the honesty attained elevated rank in our catalogue of virtues. With all my sincere regard for the high commercial integrity of the Anglo-Saxon race, when I ask for the ultimate ground, I am told that, quote, honesty is the best policy. That is, it pays to be honest. Is not this virtue, then, in its own reward? If it is followed because it follows in cash, it brings more in cash than falsehood. I am afraid Bushido would rather indulge in lies. If Bushido rejects a doctrine of quid pro quo rewards, the shrewder of tradesmen will readily accept it. By the way, if you're not privy to quid pro quo, that means something for something. Lecky has very truly remarked that veracity owes its growth largely to commerce and manufacture. As Nietzsche puts it, honesty is the youngest of the virtues. In other words, it is the foster child of modern industry. Without this mother, veracity was like a blue blood orphan whom only the most cultivated mind could adopt and nourish. Such minds were generally among the samurai, but for want of a more democratic and utilitarian foster mother, the tender child failed to thrive. Industries advancing, veracity will prove an easy, nay, a profitable virtue to practice. Just think, as late as November 1880, Bismarck, Otto von, sent a circular to the professional consuls of the German Empire, warning them of a, quote, lamentable lack of reliability with regard to German shipments, inter alia, apparent both as to quality and quantity, unquote. Nowadays, we hear comparatively little of German carelessness and dishonesty in trade. In 20 years, her merchants have learned that in the end, honesty pays. Already, our merchants have found that out. Often, I've wondered whether the veracity of Bushido had any motive higher than courage. In the absence of any positive commandment against bearing false witness, lying was not condemned as sin, but simply denounced as weakness, and as such, highly dishonorable. As a matter of fact, the idea of honesty is so intimately blended, and its Latin and German etymology, that is, study of word roots, so identified with honor that it is high time I should pause a few moments for the consideration of this feature of the precepts of knighthood. And that was the end of Chapter 7 on veracity and sincerity. Next up will be Chapter 8 on honor. All right, I hope you enjoyed that author, Inazao. It's covered up by the sticker Nito. I'll have to double check for you what that Inazo Nitobe. There you go. Inazo Nitobe by Arcturus Publishing, with a bear and the star above his head. By the way, I do not claim the rights to any of this. This is for educational and informational purposes only, and it is fully copyrighted by Arcturus Holdings Limited, published in copyright 2024, Arcturus Publishing Limited, from London. There are 17 chapters of this book, as well as endnotes and picture credits. Absolutely fantastic, if a little bit verbose, I might say. A lot of big words, but that's great if you love challenges, and you should learn to love problem, uncertainties, and challenges. Puck, like a hockey puck. I love puck. I love problems, uncertainty, and challenges. And if you live by that mantra, I guarantee nothing in life can stop you. Until next time, North Form Podcast signing out.